the Duker, Larry Morrow on WIXY 1260.
WIXY 1260 Super Radio. You're in.
Doing a show on a Saturday afternoon. The Outsiders are starting to show up here in the house. We're going to have 3 out of 4 of them here today. Billy, I want you to play the Outsiders' current song off their 2020 album, It's Time. You ready?
Let's do it right now.
Let's do it right now. It's called I've Got a Heart Too on WIXY 1260 Online. The Outsiders, I've Got a Heart Too on WIXY 1260 Online.
The Super Radio Sound.
WIXY Cleveland.
It's 2:31 at the Rock and Roll Station, WIXY 1260 Online. Billy, it's up to you.
This sounds like something I remember. Is this Talk Talk?
Yep. Do it.
Talk, talk.
WIXY Cleveland.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is WIXY 1260 Online with special guest DJ Billy Bass.
Another hour of music.
Well, I'll be doggone. Here's one we haven't heard in a long time. Another WIXY Super Oldie Great.
No beats. Here's Run, Baby, Run.
On 1260 WIXY Radio.
Now, this will take you back. This is way back on WIXY 1260 days with Billy Bass right here on WIXY1260.com. Yeah, baby.
Smokey and the Miracles from 1970 and Tears of a Clown. This is Rockin' Ray King on a very special Saturday here on WIXY 1260 Online. We have Billy Bass in the studio. We're going to be joined by the Duker, Larry Morrow, at 3 o'clock. Stay tuned. It's only going to get better from here.
Well, all right. Let's go back to one of the songs that'll just make you get up and dance, make you feel good, make you think about your baby. Okay? Oh, yeah, baby. The Ronettes and Be My Baby on WIXY1260Online.com. All right.
1260 Super Radio.
All right, here we go. Give me some music, man. Come on, what's wrong? My engineer is on drugs. I want you to know that right now. Okay, here's one for you.
I only win.
You remember this one?
Absolutely. Krabby Appleton, go back.
Let's go back, baby.
That song even makes me want to get up and dance Krabby Appleton with a one-hit wonder and go back.
Saturday hits.
This is Ray King in the studio with WIXY legend Billy Bass, who worked at WIXY from, we're guessing 1969 until when, Billy?
I think 1971, 69 or 68 to 71.
Oh, roughly 2 years.
Yeah, then I went to NCR.
Okay, right, very good. We have a phone number you can call if you want to dedicate a song or request a song. It's 216-744-9499, 216-744-WIXY, or send us an email request at requests@WIXY1260online.com. Here's what Billy sounded like on the original WIXY 1260 back in the late 60s.
WIXY Classics.
Peter, Paul, and Mary leaving on a jet plane number 35 in the year 1969.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is WIXY Cleveland playing all the super hits of 69 on the New Year's Countdown.
Douglas Quintet is back. That's the way it was in 1969. Number 34 was the Sir Douglas Quintet in Mendocino. We're at 10:03 right now. Billy Bass taking you just a little bit closer to number 1. And the year 1970, or the year 1, with Nielsen, number 33.
WIXY plays more music.
Billy, did that bring back any chills, hearing yourself on the radio so long ago?
Yeah, when was that? Was I a kid?
Yep, I taped that on December 31st in 1969. I got the whole 4 or 5 hour show of you, and I think Chuck Knapp or Chuck Dunaway took it over after your shift was over. But yeah, that was. I taped those countdowns every year because it was a great way to hear the biggest songs of the year at one shot. They were always amazing.
It was so much fun to do, too.
What's coming up next, Billy?
Well, I think we'll, how about some Rolling Stones?
Sounds good to me.
Time is on my side. Let's
you got
hear
it. On WIXY.
Loving up your weekend.
our loyal listener, Maddie in Killeen, Texas. Billy, take it.
Well, this is for you, Maddie, because I know how sexy you are, you sexy thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, come and touch me. Kiss me. Talk to me, baby. Get on the telephone and call me up right now. WIXY1260ONLINE.com. How about that? You know, I got my friend Larry Morrow's coming in. He's coming in pretty soon, I think. I think we're going to see Larry at about maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Hopefully he's on his way. And when he gets here, we're going to talk about some of the old WIXY Supermen. And thinking of which, here's one up right now. Paul Revere and the Raiders.
Hungry for that sweet life, baby, with a real fine girl like you.
Another one of those great sexy songs from WIXY1260Online.com with Billy Bass and my friend Larry Morrow. Should show up here anytime now, but I got a double shot of my baby's love for you. Yeah, come on, party with me. Party with me.
Billy, I love every minute of this. I am on cloud nine, baby.
I love it too. This is WIXY and this is Double Shot.
And now, a WIXY 1260 special presentation.
WIXY Cleveland.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is WIXY 1260 Online with special guest DJ, the Duker, Larry Morrow.
Another hour of music. Pow, pow, pow.
But wait, there's more.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is WIXY 1260 Online with special guest DJ Billy Bass.
Another hour of music.
Okay.
Pow, pow, pow.
And we are off and running. The Duker's in the studio. Billy Bass is in the studio. Duker, welcome back to WIXY 1260.
Good to be back, as always.
Thank you so much. We're going to rock and roll till 6 o'clock tonight with you and Billy reminiscing, playing the great WIXY tunes of the 60s and 70s, and telling your stories. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Yes, I'm ready. Yeah.
Opening up this hour, the Moody Blues and Ride My Seesaw, WIXY 1260 Online with Billy Bass and Larry Morrow. Moody Blues and Ride My Seesaw. This is Rockin' Ray King with WIXY legend Billy Bass and Larry Morrow in the studio till 6 o'clock tonight. Larry, how you doing, man?
Good. This is a little unusual. Billy and I have never done this before, where we're head-to-head doing this kind of thing. But you know what? I'll never forget when we finally got you to come to the radio station. You tell one of the greatest stories ever. And you know the one I'm going to ask you to tell. Those of us who are WIXY 1260, I'm talking about Mike Ranieri, Lou King Kirby, The Wild Child, myself, etc. We were being promoted everywhere. Billy now, Wild Child moves on. Billy becomes our night man, and he's not being promoted. And so now we have to tell the story. You decided to go to the general manager, Norm Wayne.
I told this story earlier before you got here, but we're telling on the air now, okay?
Yeah.
All right.
It's a great story.
So I go into Norman Wayne and say, listen, Norman, I don't understand. We got all these great numbers. Everybody else gets promoted. Everybody else gets talked about. You send all these guys out in the Cadillacs, and they look great, and they look like WIXY Superman, and you keep me in the attic upstairs. What's up with that? And he looked at me very seriously and said, Billy, what's wrong with you? Don't you know you're black? And I said, yeah, what's that got to do with it? He said, I'm telling you right now, I'm protecting you. I'm protecting you. I'm taking care of you. I said, well, take care of me with a raise. And of course, with Norman asking for a raise, that's like, get out of here. But at any rate, then we go on and we do the basketball game in Lakewood. You take it from there.
Yeah, let me tell this great story. With the basket, we were called the Larry Morrow WIXY All-Stars. And Billy now has become this very popular night guy, from 7 to midnight. And the two best players on the team were you and Chuck Knapp. I could play, but not like you guys. And so we're going out to Lakewood High School, Lily White Lakewood High School. and I said, I want to introduce Billy to these people, and we're going to find out what kind of reaction we're getting from the people at Lakewood. So now I get up there and I said, ladies and gentlemen, I want to I introduced Chuck Knapp and Luke and Kirby. No. And I said, now, ladies and gentlemen, and we're waiting to see what the reaction is going to be. I said, and now, ladies and gentlemen, our night man, Billy Bass. And they bring the house down, standing ovation. And then to make it worse for Norm Wayne, you go on to score 38 points.
It was a fun night, wasn't it?
It was a fun night. And that was the beginning, I guess. Would you say it was a turnaround time for you?
It was, really was.
Yeah.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned all those names, because every time you mention one of those guys' names, a song comes to mind for me.
Okay.
And you mentioned Chuck Knapp, one of the best top 40 DJs I ever heard. That guy was so good. Is he going to come is he going to be on the show today?
We're going to try to make that happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was great, but I remember a song that he used to love, I'm a Man, that Spencer Davis group song. Do you have that one? Yeah, he used to play that. What makes you think of Chuck Knapp when you think of Chuck Knapp? What do you remember?
You hit me cold.
Okay, well, let's talk about Luke King Kirby then, because I know you know him really well, right?
Yeah, Luke King Kirby was a very special guy as well. He drove an old Cadillac. He had this old Cadillac, and he had his logo on the side of the Cadillac, and a logo that only a king would put on the side of this Cadillac. So we would drive everywhere with him. We go to the promotions together, and he wore his king hat, whatever that was called. Yeah, he wore the crown, and so he had a fake phone in the car, and obviously this was long before the kind of phones we have today. But we would pull up to a light, and Luke Kirby would hit a sound effect like the phone ringing. The phone would ring, and he would take the phone and hang it out to the window to the person next to us and say, by the way, this is for you. He was incredible that way.
He was so fun. Luke King Kirby had his style. He had his thing, right? He had his whole bit. He was terrific. And there's one song that he used to play, and it was so Luke King Kirby, and we got that song coming up next.
Okay.
You know who I'm talking about?
No.
Tommy James and the Shondells with Hanky Panky. Here we go.
On 1260 WIXY Radio.
And we have an abundance of personality today in the WIXY studio. This is Rockin' Ray King on a very special Saturday with WIXY Originals, Larry Morrow and Billy Bass in the studio. Larry?
You know what? We were never together in the studio.
Never.
I mean, we worked at the same radio station and didn't see each other very often.
You were the morning guy, and I was late at night. So
yeah, I was on it. Yeah, I was on at 10 o'clock. You know, it's interesting. Do you have a story regarding Mike Ranieri?
Later. But I got a story coming up about you, though.
Okay, let me tell a Mike Ranieri story.
Go ahead.
I did a trade-off with Mike Ranieri every day at 10 o'clock. And Mike was this wild kind of guy on the air, and he loved to pick on me. He just loved to pick on me. So one day, it was the first day of spring, and I dressed up like the way I always did. I used to come in sometimes with a tie and a shirt on. So I had a green shirt with a green and white tie and a green and white seersucker coat, that kind of coat, whatever it was. And green pants, white shoes, and green socks. And Mike Ranieri looked at me and he said, would you describe to the audience what you have on? And I did. I described this whole outfit that I have on. I said, don't you like it? I mean, it's the first day of spring. He said, you look like the president of a lizard factory.
He was funny, that guy.
Yeah, he was a very funny guy. And another time I had a leather jacket on, and he described the coat. And I said, do you like this coat? He says, it looks like you took that off of my dad's 49 Chevy. But But he was a very funny guy, and I loved working with Mike. He was straight.
Mike and his wife together. What a team!
Barbara, right?
Barbara down in Miami or in Florida, I know. Yeah. We hear from her a lot. Yeah. It's great to hear from her because she brings back all those Mike Ranieri memories. But you know what? A memory I have is of you. I have a Neil Diamond memory of you. When I think of you guys, and by the way, I had it was such an honor to work with somebody like you from CKLW and Dunaway from WABC and Knapp from WLS.
Yes.
I mean, you guys were just the biggest and the best of them all.
We were lucky.
And me.
Yeah.
And what was I doing here? It was crazy. But anyway, the song that makes me think of you whenever I hear it is Neil Diamond's Cherry Cherry. You know it?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Did you have a story to tell about it?
You know what? Why don't we play the song and then I'll tell the story.
Okay, great. Let's do it with Neil Diamond.
Here's Neil Diamond at WIXY 1260.
Did somebody say Mike Ranieri?
WIXY Super Hit Countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Oh, there it is. I couldn't hear it. Hearing's not like it used to be. Okay. Here's Neil Diamond and Cherry Cherry. There was no song ever is more popular for Neil Diamond than Cherry Cherry.
And makes me think of you every time I hear it.
Why is that?
Because every time I turned on WIXY, that song was coming up on your show. We used to have this rotation, right? And the records were set. But you must have slipped Cherry Cherry.
I have a story about that later on, about getting down into the top 40 that you were not allowed to do. But anyway, the very first WIXY, the first WIXY 1260 Appreciation Day. Yeah, it was WIXY 1260 Appreciation Day, the first one. And so now we had Smokey Robinson and some other acts that were very, very popular, but nothing like Neil Diamond. Neil Diamond was not even popular. He had a West Coast hit. I'm trying to think of what it was, but it wasn't very popular. And all of a sudden, Norm Wayne, the owner of the station, comes to me and he said, guess what? Somebody forgot to pick up Neil Diamond. And he said, Duker, you're the only one that has a wagon. In those days, one of those long extended cars was called a wagon. He said, you need to go pick up Neil Diamond at the airport. And he said, because he's on in an hour and a half. So I go out to the airport, pick up Neil Diamond, and in those days, they carry their instruments with them. We piled the drums on top of the car. Neil Diamond sat next to me with his guitar between his legs, and that was the beginning of having a wonderful relationship with Neil Diamond. And of course, the rest is history. Cherry Cherry came right after that. But he was a wonderful talent and a great guy, and
wrote all those great hits, including the #1 song in 1969 for the Monkees. I'm a Believer. He wrote that song, right?
And, yep. And so that may have come before Cherry Cherry. I'm not sure, maybe after. I'm not sure what it was.
Well, we forget things because, after all, that was a while back, Larry.
Yeah, you bet.
I got to tell the audience though how good you look. You look fantastic. I can't believe I'm looking at you. You look like you just stepped out of the WIXY studios.
I got to tell you a story.
Tell me.
I had my annual physical about 6 or 7 months ago, and I said to the doctor. Why is it that I feel so much younger than my age? And she said, well, that's your chronological age. That's not your real age. So I said, well, how do I find out what my real age is? She said, there's a test that you can take online by the American Medical Association. So I took the test online and found out that it was actually 20 years younger than my chronological age.
Well, there you go.
It is.
So now I'm not imagining it. You look 20 years younger than your age.
But Avery and I were talking about that on the way out, that I'm still able to work out every day. Used to be a long-distance runner, like you, Billy, remember? Mm-hmm. I used to run 10 miles a day, 70 miles a week for a long time until I had 2 knee replacements. But I've always been a person who just loves to work out.
Well, it pays off, and look at you, looking like $1 million. You know what I'm thinking about? I think we're going to hear from Chuck Knapp later on today. So I want to play a song that makes me think of Chuck Knapp, just like I used to think about you whenever I heard Cherry Cherry. But if Chuck were here right now, he'd be jumping up and down. He played this song because this made him feel like a man. He loved it. I'm WIXY.
Bob. Oh, yeah, the Dave Clark 5 on WIXY 1260 Online. This is Rockin' Ray King with a very special Saturday show. We have in the studio the original two WIXY Supermen that are still living in Cleveland, Billy Bass and Larry Morrow. Guys, take it away.
Well, I love being here with you, Larry. It's so much fun looking at you and seeing you and listening to all these songs that we used to play on the radio for that WIXY audience. They were so good.
It brings back so many wonderful memories, Billy.
And here's one for you. Do you remember Time Won't Let Me?
Oh, do I remember Time Won't Let Me? The Time Won't Let Me happened for me before I came to Cleveland. I'm on CKLW, and all of a sudden I fall in love with this new group called The Outsiders, and Time Won't Let Me, and have no idea that they're from Cleveland. So then after the song becomes somewhat of a hit, and I'm playing it like every night, and it's my song, and so someone called and said, well, they're from Cleveland, Ohio, and we can hear you loud and clear in Cleveland, because from 7 to midnight, the sound going across Lake Erie was loud and clear. And then, of course, the song becomes a big hit. I come to Cleveland, and the first person to call me when I get here is Sonny Geraci. Called me, he said, can we have lunch? And I said, your name sounds familiar. Who are you? He said, I'm the lead singer for The Outsiders. But we have a member of The Outsiders here in the studio with us. We got to grab the microphone.
Ricky. We have Rick
Howdy.
Storm.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay.
Hey, Larry. I got it.
As a matter of fact, we have 7 microphones for him.
I'll take this one. I like this one. It's purple.
Yeah. Tell me about The Outsiders. Were you one of the originals?
I was not.
Oh, you were not?
I was not. I'm too young.
Oh, yeah.
I came along a little bit later.
Yeah.
The original, actually, Ricky Biaggioli is going to be here pretty soon. You can talk to him. I came a little bit later, but we still play Time Won't Let Me. It's still in the set list.
It's very interesting. After got to meet Sonny Geraci and got to know the people in Cleveland from The Outsiders, I started a jingle company. And when I started the jingle company, the guy that wrote music and was a wonderful original organizer of charts and stuff. He said, by the way, he said, you should know me. And I said, why? He said, my name is Tom Baker. And I said, well, who are you?
Sure.
He said, I did the charts for Time Won't Let Me and for The Outsiders. So then Tom and I became partners doing jingles for a long period of time.
Yeah, that's before Chuck Mangione did some of the charts too.
Is that right?
Yeah.
But he played the horns for Time Won't Let Me.
Yeah. Okay.
He said I played the trumpets and did the original arrangement for the song.
Yeah.
So anyway. So it's great to have you here.
Oh, great to be here. Great to see you.
Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, I can't say from CKLW.
WIXY 1260 Online, The Outsiders.
The Outsiders here in WIXY 1260. You with the Duker, Larry Morrow, and Billy Bass and I are sitting here together doing the show. And of course, he had one of the members from The Outsiders right here, man. And it felt so good to be part of that song.
I'm sure.
Over such a long period of time. And one of the things, we did some rhyming things on the air all the time, and some of mine were like, hey, you're with the Duker, Larry Morrow. Ain't nothing cooking but the peas in the pot, and they wouldn't be cooking if the water wasn't hot. Woo! Ain't nothing shaking but the leaves on the trees, and they wouldn't be shaking if it wasn't for the breeze.
Yeah. We have another WIXY legend on the phone who's currently living in Cincinnati. Say hello to the music professor, Jim LaBarbera.
Oh, boy. Jimmy, how are you, man?
Great, man. I'll tell you what. It's interesting. We can go like a year, 2 years without saying anything at all, and you and I pick up the conversation right where we left off. It doesn't stop.
Your old pal is sitting here right now too. Billy Bass is with us.
Billy, I can remember we went. Those reunion things that we had in the '80s with Magic. So we're going to a reunion thing one night, and Billy says, "All right, you know what? We had a little drink at his place, and then we got in the limousine." And a bunch of us in the car, and he said, we'll stay for a little while and we'll go because there won't be many people there, And we're in the limousine, and we're waiting in traffic, and I said, the driver, what's going on? He said, man, we can't get near the place. It's jammed. There was a big line around the block at wherever club it was, waiting to see us. It was like amazing that these people remembered. This was back in the 80s, and Billy's just incredible.
Well, you made the big impression, Jim. You're the one they came to see, that's for sure.
Now, Jim, Billy told the story that he replaced you at WIXY. Is that right, Bill?
Yep.
Jim, why did you leave WIXY 1260?
Well, it was a long, involved story, but at this point in my life, I was getting. I thought maybe I'm getting old. I think it was 23, 24, and this rock and roll thing. I wanted to do more mature radio, and it so happened that when I was at KY in Cleveland, Jim Gallant was there. We worked together. Then they replaced him to give me a full-time show. Because I was a summer replacement guy that went in there, although I was working like full shifts every day. And he was down at WLW. I gave him a call. Mary Ann, his wife, answered the phone. She was from Miss Ohio and used to do a lot of booking for different groups and that. Did a bunch of bookings with the disc jockeys. And she said, Jim wants to talk to you. So I came to visit with him in Cincinnati, and they hired me. And I did the early night show and then afternoon drive and the co-host of the TV show that was going off the air for a month or so. And I've been here with the exception of 9 months ever since that. And that was in early 1969, in May of 1969. So it's been a good ride down here. And I came into WIXY. I was at WIXY twice. They don't have this in the book even that they wrote on WIXY. But I was a jock under two different names. I went into WIXY in early 1966. Bobby Magic was doing the all-night show. Jerry Spinn was the program director. And he said, look, I can't promise you a job, but Joey Reynolds just left. He's going to Detroit. I need somebody to fill in. And they had a tape on me because a couple of engineers who worked at DOK were friends of mine. They visited Erie, but I was Jay Bentley starting intrepid leader. And they said, some guys bought the radio station. You have a tape, give us the tape, And that's what happened. Jerry Spinn got the tape. I did 3 shows there. And then he told me not to come back because he was upset I couldn't make one show because I wrecked my car. And I wasn't supposed to tell anybody in Erie that I was working there. And that was it. But I worked for Bobby Magic, showed me how to work the board for about 30 seconds, and he had a date, he had to leave. Ray Otis was there for 2 days, and he quit, and Howie Lund was there for the other day. And then I came back to WIXY after a few years at KY, and this was in April of 68. Jerry Butler was there, and he left to go to KXOK in St. Louis. And George Brewer, I knew George from Wise Advertising. His wife, Kathy, worked with my girlfriend, Susan. And so we were social friends, and he hired me to come in. So it was about 2 months after I was gone from KY, I was at WIXY, and it was like an experience, of a lifetime.
Larry, I thought you could talk. I mean, that's some talk right there. That's some good. There's some stories going on right there, buddy.
Jim LaBarbera has the greatest stories. It's interesting. So, Jim, you actually were at WIXY 1260 before I got there.
Yeah, for just a cup of coffee for those 3 shows. And it was interesting because Jerry Spinn never heard me. The third day when I called him, I said, look, I wrecked my car. I can't come in today. But, and he screamed and yelled at me like crazy. And from that, though, I was smart enough to throw a tape on. So I had an air check of Jay Bentley Star. And Steve Popovich, the record guy, was in Erie. And I said, don't tell anybody. He said, well, I didn't hear you. He said, but Jim Gallant might not be happy at KY. There's no program director, but Bob Martin is the general manager. You ought to go see him. I called Martin, and he said, come on in, I want to talk to you. Went in, and about 2 days later, I get a call. Hey, this is NBC in Cleveland. Jim LaBarbera, we want to offer you a job. And I hung up the phone because I thought it was somebody putting me on because somebody had said they were Rick Sklar one time when I was in Erie, and I hung up on him. Later, I found out from Rick Sklar that, in fact, he did go to Erie and pick out guys, and somebody hung up. He wouldn't call him back. And then Bob Martin called me back and said, look, if you hang up on me again, I'm not going to call you back. I want you to work at WKYC. And that's how I got into Cleveland. The first night on the air, I started to stay Jay Bentley Star. He was sitting with me, and he said, no, you don't have to put anybody on. You use your real name, Jim LaBarbera. And that was my first go at using my own name. And I was petrified, had to write it down on a piece of paper. So,
well, Jim, we got a lot of people listening wanting to hear that song of yours. What song would you like to play for the people listening to you right now on WIXY 1260 Online?
Well, Billy, the song that one of the reunions, everybody started saying, I was the first to play it. Everybody saying, I was the first to play it. Kirby, I was the first to play it. And Jimmy Bonfante got on the phone and said, no, you know what? He said it was Jimmy LaBarbera. Jimmy was the first to play. Because I used to do the hop at the Painesville Armory on a Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
And it was packed, really packed, because they were tied in with the Upbeat crew, the bandstand show there. And so they, you know, with Dave Smiley was in the group, and Wally Bryson and Jimmy Bonfante. And we had this record and premiered it on my show, and it was like #1 for like 5 weeks, the choir. And then, of course, they got together with the kid from Cyrus Erie and became a superstar with the Raspberries. But this record was a huge record. But we couldn't get out of Cleveland. This was in Cleveland and in certain little markets, but it should have been a national hit. What a great record.
Well, my world used to be to make you love me, to make you love me.
With the long ending. The Choir for Jim LaBarbera, and It's Cold Outside. This is Ray King on a Saturday afternoon on WIXY 1260 Online with two WIXY legends in the studio, Larry the Duker Morrow and the one and only Billy Bass. And we have another phone call from another former WIXY personality.
Who you got?
We have got the Napper, Chuck Knapp. Chuck, it's up to you.
Hey, guys.
Whoa,
hey,
Chuck.
Billy. Hey, Larry.
Yes.
How y'all doing?
Hey, Chuck, how are you, man? Hey, Chuck, I want you to tell the story. Billy is sitting right here, and we have a wonderful Chuck Knapp, Billy Bass story. But tell the story about how you became the Napper. Do you remember?
Well, the kids had written that in my high school annual. So if you want to flash way back to high school, that's where they first started calling me the Napper. But you know, there was a song called The Rapper, and I kind of tied into that when I was in Cleveland, and the Napper was playing The Rapper, and things were dapper. And I loved being with you and Billy. I love you guys. And Larry, I remember the night you took me out to you're such a fine Lebanese friend, and you took me out and introduced me to Kibbe, you know. And I mean, we just had some of the greatest times ever doing Cleveland radio with Billy and you and Ranieri and Dunaway and Kirby, and there were just so many people at WIXY 1260. The city was absolutely lit up. It was the place to do top 40 radio because it was wide open, which is why I wanted to come to Cleveland. I wanted to be on a station that was running wide open 24/7. I didn't want to sit in Boston and read Bill Drake cue cards.
Well, Napper, let me tell you
maybe
something.
you had to do a little of that when you were at the Big 8. I don't know.
When you came here to
got
Cleveland,
out of Boston and had a little meeting in Norm Wayne's office, and the rest is history for the next 3 years.
You know, I'll never forget. Norm Wayne called me in his office one day, right after he had hired you. But you had been around. You had been here for a while, and you didn't use the Napper for a while. Remember, Chuck? And then Norm Wayne calls me in his office, and he said, "Do you mind if?" He said, "No. Will you be offended if someone else has another nickname on the radio station? You got the Duker. Wild Child had whatever he had." And I said, "Like what?" And he says, "Well, Chuck Knapp is going to be called the Napper." And I said, "I think that's great." And I said, I only care about Chuck Knapp. Can he play basketball?"
Man, when you and I got out to Lakewood with everybody, and when John Denver came and joined us, and John and I went out back and got properly adjusted for the game, and came in and probably scored 50, 60 points between the two of us. That was a night to remember. But back to the Napper for a half a second. Norm hung me with a name that I didn't want to use when I first came to Cleveland. Do you remember the Buzzin' Cousin?
I remember. Yeah, I remember.
Okay, so I'm living on the 27th floor of the Winton Place looking at downtown Cleveland, and I've got a phone there, and it's got a light beside it because the ringing would drive me crazy. And the idea was that the WIXY 1260 radio audience would be able to call me day or night. And so Norm's idea, and it was a good idea, the Buzzin' Cousin. I mean, it was good. I just didn't like it. I had been Chuck the Napper, Chuck Knapp for a long time in Fargo and in Boston, and that's what I wanted to use in Cleveland. And so I kind of had to override him, and hopefully he wasn't going to blow me out over it. I had not known until just this second that he brought you in and asked you if the Duker would be offended to share the airwaves with the Napper.
See, that Norman Wayne was full of surprises. You know, he was always thinking of us, really.
Chuck, I told the story earlier. You just alluded to it briefly. When we went to Lakewood to play those people, we never lost a game, by the way. We as the WIXY All-Stars, we never, ever lost a game. The reason for that is that we had so many guys come in, like Paul Warfield, and play with us, and some of the other guys who are great ball players. But that was the night, you remember, Chuck, that we introduced Billy Bass for the very first time. And we were so concerned because that audience out there was lily white, and we introduced Billy, and you're going to remember, Chuck, because you and Billy scored, I don't know, 100 points,
100 or more, maybe 1,000.
You were the only guys. You were the only two guys on the team that could really play basketball. I could play as long as I could dribble, but I couldn't shoot. I was a terrible shooter. But anyway, that was a great night. Do you remember that night? Did he go? Is he here?
Chuck, are you with us?
Oh, we lost him.
Too bad, because I wanted to blow his horn.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. They're funny. I'm sorry, they got me laughing. I want to toot his horn. Oh, no matter how I say it, it comes out fun. Anyway, Chuck Knapp is the best top 40 DJ I ever heard in my life.
Is that right?
I've been all over the country. When Chuck was on the air, you know, Luke King Kirby had a bit.
Yes.
You know, he had a bit. The Wild Child had a bit.
Yeah.
But Chuck, he could play that music and make that. Every song he played, sounded like the best song you ever heard.
Yeah.
He was that good of a jock.
No, he was.
He had every post. He was phenomenal. Yeah. I hope he can hear me now, because he's one of the best ever.
Yeah, are you there, Chuck Knapp? He's
maybe he can hear us and we can't hear him.
Well, I'm hoping that he comes back, because he has to hear that story. The best top 40 jock I ever heard. We became friends right away. Then we became enemies at the station. But he'd come in from WABC New York, was Chuck Dunaway. Mm-hmm. And when I heard Chuck Dunaway from New York, I thought, that is the best top 40 jock. And then all of a sudden, he comes to Cleveland. And so over the period of the 6 years that I was there, we had some of the best jocks like Chuck Knapp.
Well, you had Chuck Knapp, you had Dunaway, we had Youth.
Yeah.
I mean, the names, the pedigree of you guys.
What was interesting is we were talking one night after one of the basketball games, and I thought, every one of us, the original guys that came to work at WIXY 1260, every one of us had come from a 50,000 watt station. Kirby had come from someplace in Texas. Wild Child had come from Chicago. I came from Detroit. And it was interesting that 5 guys on the air had all worked at top 40 big stations, and every one of us had been fired.
From those big stations, right?
And Norm Wayne would just kept on picking up the pieces.
And putting you guys on the best radio station in the country. I mean, there was nothing better than WIXY 1260. Yeah. Nothing.
I have a cute story. We didn't make any money at WIXY.
Tell me about it.
If you made $7,000 or $8,000 a year, man, you were big time. And I'll never forget. I was blessed when I won the Cleveland Press did this DJ contest, and I won the contest. And I'll never forget going into Norm Wayne, and I said, Norm, I'd like a raise.
Sounds like me.
And Norm said, you want a raise? I said, Norm, look, I've been here for 4 years or whatever. I said, I just made it to #1 in terms of the DJs in Cleveland. Don't you think I deserve a raise? He said, well, let me see if you deserve a raise. I'm going to call my wife, Nina, and get Nina on the phone. So he gets Nina on the phone, and he said, Nina wants to talk to you. So I said, hi, Nina, how you doing? She says, you want $20,000? I said, yes. She says, don't you leave that office until you get that money.
Hey, that's Nina. God bless her soul.
Oh, and so you know what they did? They paid me $19,999.99. They were a penny short of the $20,000.
Again, another Norman Wayne story. They just keep, they just keep rolling. Yeah. You got something for us?
Guys, we have a request. We have a hello to both of you from our loyal listeners, Pat and Linda, tuned in from the Makaha Valley in Hawaii. They want to hear a song.
And the requests just keep on coming.
Here's Jan and Dean.
This is WIXY1260 Online. It's a party in the studio. Billy Bass, Ray King, we got lovely Lisa, and of course, we got the Duker himself. And we got a little presentation to make today.
Exactly.
You see, I'm going to take you back. It was the 1960s. Our country was Camelot, and then Camelot died. We were invaded by Britain yet again, not with muskets and redcoats, but by mop tops, with baba boots and Cuban heels and music. And on the shores of Lake Erie, there was this sound, you see, from Motown, from Philly, and if you listened real hard all the way across the USA, you heard the California surf. In 1965, Larry was one of them that went and visited the United States Marines, where we went ashore in Da Nang as the first wave of U.S. troops in South Vietnam. And young people noticed and objected. The music on AM airwaves was the pulse of the nation and reflected all that was happening in the world, and we had those guys on the airwaves. We had Wolfman Jack, Marita Kay, Johnny Holiday, Dick Clark, Casey Kasem, and a brand new station in Cleveland, Ohio, WIXY1260 came alive. And in Cleveland, man, there was only one number one and only number one, and that was Larry Morrow. Now, he sailed into the radio as personality John Paul Jones, uniform, hat, and all. Oh, yeah, he did. And he hit the heights in Michigan and was dubbed the Duke of Windsor. That's an important man. And then the Duker got back onto his ship, pointed it east-southeast, and said, full sail, full speed ahead. And he didn't stop until he landed on Lake Erie in Cleveland, Ohio.
In a very short time, WIXY had the highest ratings in the entire United States. Larry Morrow had the highest rating in Cleveland with a 50 share, unheard of. His personality, his charm, his musical knowledge made him loved and respected by the music fans of Cleveland. Larry Morrow, WIXY1260, and Cleveland became synonymous. Events all across town, businesses and listeners embraced Larry Morrow. In 1970, Larry Morrow was voted the National DJ of the Year. And yet, more than a DJ, Larry did volunteer work for Cleveland. He did voice work, production work, and much creative work. Larry wrote the original Cleveland Cavaliers fight song, Come On Cavs, as well as the theme for the Crusaders. Larry Morrow touched many people and made a difference in our lives. Today, we dedicate the WIXY1260 Online Studio to this man, the Cleveland legend, Larry Morrow.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you so much for everything you've done. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You are quite welcome, Larry. I'm very honored to be here today with you. Fantastic.
I am deeply touched by it. That is so. Get it. I am so deeply touched by that, and you've expanded my heart in a very big way.
It's our pleasure. You have helped us, you've promoted us, and we really appreciate everything you've done for us.
Surely undeserving, but I'm thrilled to see it.
Humble.
To see it. You know, she brought up the fact that I had a 50 share. Here's my 50 share story. We had finally hit, we were always number one with 28 shares, 25 shares. So all of a sudden, Norm Wayne calls me in his office one day and he said, hey, Duker, congratulations. I said, for what? He said, you now hit a 50 share, which we think is the biggest share that Cleveland has ever known. And so I said, well, that's very nice. So now another 3 months goes by, the ratings come out, and I had gone from a 50 share back down to a 28 or a 30 share. And Norm Wayne writes, and I still have it someplace, it said, "Duker, we will no longer put up with this kind of slippage." When you go from a 50 back down to a 28 or something like that. That was wonderful. Those were wonderful times when WIXY had such big numbers. And when you looked at the competition, WKYC and WHK, they were sitting there like with 10 and 12 shares, and here we are with 18 and 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 shares. Incredible. Well, anyway, let's continue with the music here on WIXY 1260.
It's the top of the hour.
WIXY Cleveland.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is WIXY 1260 Online with special guest DJ, the Duker, Larry Morrow.
Another hour of music power.
It's 4 o'clock in the Rock and Roll City. Rock and Ray King honored to be with Larry the Duker Morrow on WIXY. Here come the Monkees and Mary, Mary. Monkees on WIXY 1260 Online. This is Rock and Ray King with the Duker, Larry Morrow. And once again, we have Chuck Knapp on the line. Chuckles, are you there?
Well, I'm down here in the Ozark Mountains, and you know, reception's not so good with dial-up down here, and so I'm having a little trouble here in WIXY 1260 Online. Maybe the lightning strike probably did me in there for a half a minute. But yeah, I'm back, and it's great to be a part of this broadcast with Billy and Larry and you, and just reminiscing everything that happened in Cleveland radio, which was just second to none anywhere I ever worked.
Yep, it was a very special time for all of us, Chuck. Chuck, do you remember the Cleveland Press did a story on WIXY 1260, and they had you and your wife, I believe her name was Kathy, correct?
No, but that's okay. Keep going.
Okay.
But I don't think Bruno Bornino ever made a mistake for the Cleveland Press.
Yeah, but it was Jim LaBarbera and his girlfriend, you and at that time your wife, and me, and me and my wife, and I still have that picture somewhere along the way, Chuck. And we were wearing bell-bottom trousers.
Well, it was a fashion show for the May Company or Higbee's, one of them.
That's exactly what it was. It was a fashion show for the May Company. But those are great times. And Chuck, what is your best memory of WIXY? Was it the playing basketball? Was it just being on the air every day?
Well, I think it was the purple carpet on the walls with the white woodwork. It was probably, you get so revved up going in there, and maybe following Dunaway for a while on the air and realizing there was something very interesting in the can of Coke that he was drinking while he was on the air, and perhaps that boosted my spirits a little bit. The music was just out of this world, and there are no finer radio listeners that know more about personality radio and music and promotions than Cleveland, Ohio. Northern Ohio listeners are very special. I was out in the East, and that was fine, but I grew up in Big Ten country, out in West Central Minnesota, and I used to listen to Bob Feller, and I would hear Jimmy Pearsall sitting on his chair out in center field, the old Muni Stadium, and at the time when I was a kid, like 12 years old, honestly, Larry, I thought Cleveland was on the East Coast of the United States. I was a little geographically hampered, as they say. But to come back to the Midwest from the East was really a breath of fresh air for me because of the people. It's the people in Northern Ohio that I remember the most. Some of them still check in with me, call me, talk to me, and email me. It's just wonderful.
I'm so blessed because I'm still here in Cleveland, and I've had my entire radio career at a few radio stations in Cleveland, Chuck. But I will tell you, they were the most wonderful audience, and every once in a while, maybe depending on how many places I go during the course of the year, but they'll come up and they'll mention all the guys. Larry, do you ever talk to Chuck Knapp? you ever talk to Chuck Dunaway? Do you ever talk to Billy Bass? How about the Wild Child? Is he still alive?
The Child.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, I replaced the Child when the Child went to McKeesport, Pittsburgh, to do WIXY in Pittsburgh. Then I got it. That's what opened the door for me to come into Cleveland radio. But I remember listening to the Child. I know every blade of grass by its first name.
Yeah.
You know, that was Dick. He was something else. But the whole station, I'm still online with Barbara Ranieri, and we do private messaging back and forth on Facebook, and I see pictures of her kids and her grandkids, and it's absolutely wonderful to still be in touch with Uncle Michael's better half.
You know, he was Mike Ranieri was quite a guy, and we did that. I talked earlier, Chuck, about some of the funny things that we did at 10 o'clock in the morning. And Mike was just one of the funniest people in the world. And I thought one day, because he made fun of me every day at 10 o'clock in the morning, I thought I had to get back at him. So I remember I had become good friends with the police chief in Seven Hills, and that's where WIXY1260 was located, the transmitter. And so I said to the police chief, I said, "Is there any way that I can have Mike Ranieri arrested?" and he said, "What would you like to do?" And I said, "We could do anything." I said, "I just would like to have him come to work early in the morning and just arrest him." And he said, "You know what we can do?" He said, "We can put a fake license plate on his car or something like that." And when Mike found out, he did get arrested. They delayed him for 10 minutes. So instead of getting on the air at 5:30, he came in at 5:40. So I knew the whole story. When I came on at 10 o'clock and I said, "I can't believe that the morning man at WIXY1260 is now a criminal." And Mike Ranieri went off on me, and when he found out that I did that, he said, "I will never forgive you." And he said, "I will get back at you 100 times before you leave WIXY." And he did. Yeah. He was a funny guy. But Chuck,
you know, carrying a grudge is an interesting thing.
Yeah. You know, well, look, Chuck, you've been wonderful. It's been wonderful to chat with you, and to have you and Billy on the air at the same time was wonderful. And I will never forget that day at Lakewood High School. Between the two of you had to score 60 or 70 points. And
so John Denver, just before you let me go, John Denver was always teasing me about how we were going to race. He had a Porsche, and I had that Jaguar that I leased from Cleveland Jag, and I was driving that Jag, and he was talking about his Porsche, and he was going to whoop me. Well, unfortunately, we never got the chance. Years later, when he passed away in that private aviation thing that he built and flew. But he was absolutely amazing. Lakewood was amazing. To raise money for the coaches for the athletic fund at Lakewood High was very special. I have so many years of memories, and I'm blessed that my mind is still clear, and I can remember. And I was looking at pictures today of you and I at the WIXY May Company Christmas Parade, and looking at the music. Remember, we went to Elton John, and he was a backup act. The Byrds were the headliner, and some guy we'd never heard of was the backup. So Elton came on first and played at Public Hall, and when he was done, there were quite a number of people from the building that exited and said, "You know, we really didn't come to hear Turn, Turn, Turn. We came to hear some guy named Elton John, and the rest is history for him." I'll tell you that.
Those were special times. My one John Denver story is that when we opened up, I'm trying to think of the place where we opened up, but it was way up on the east side. It's a place now where many people go for concerts.
You think of Blossom?
It was Blossom Music Center.
Yeah.
So now the main act is Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and I've been blessed to be the MC that night, and so because no one had been to that place, no one had been to Blossom, and they didn't have cell phones. The word came from the Belkins that we've got a problem. We've got 3 of the guys for the band Blood, Sweat, and Tears. They're on their way. They can't find the other 4. couldn't find him anywhere. And so we've got John Denver. The only thing that John Denver had at that time, he had written "Leaving on a Jet Plane" for Peter, Paul, and Mary. Remember, Chuck? But he had not had a hit himself. Well, so he's on stage and he performs like a 30-minute set, and then when the set was over, he comes off, and then the Belkin said, "Look, we can't get blood, sweat, and tears here. You got to bring him back on stage." He comes back on stage, and they booed him off the stage.
Oh man!
So Mike Belkin says, "Get him off." So then I felt so bad that night, and I had picked up John Denver at the airport, and I had to take him back in the morning. And so,
yeah, I mean, you picked up everybody at the airport. They sent you to get Neil Diamond at the airport.
That's right.
Crying out loud.
So anyway, I after the concert was over, I invited John Denver. I says, "John, look, I got a few people coming over to my house. Why don't you come on over and we'll have sort of a relaxing time at like 1 o'clock in the morning or something." And so John Denver comes to my house. And he didn't fall in love, but he had something to do with our female promotion director. He pulls out his guitar, and he starts to play the guitar, and all of a sudden she turns away to start talking to somebody else. And I felt bad for John Denver. And then, John told me that night, he says, "Larry, I'm going to come back here someday." And he said, "And I'm going to laugh at them who laughed at me." 2 years later, I introduced him at the Coliseum in front of 20,000 people. And he did. He came back, and he was one of the biggest stars ever. He was a very special human being. Loved him a lot.
Well, I would love to see another WIXY 1260 reunion, and maybe Ray and the guys that are running the online can work that out.
I'm into that,
bring
Chuck.
a bunch of us back in for a weekend on the air. It's just the stories go on forever.
Yep. Well, Chuck, it's been a blessing. It's been a blessing not only to know you, to work with you, but to have you as a friend all these years, and then to come on this very special day for WIXY 1260 Online. Thank you, pal.
Hey, congratulations, Larry. I mean, you deserve it. You are the man in Cleveland radio, and Cleveland rock and roll was and is the best in the nation.
You bet.
So
Chuck,
thank you for inviting me on. And
okay.
God bless you, Larry.
Okay, same here. Bless you, my friend.
Thanks.
The Duker, Larry
Bye-bye.
Morrow on WIXY 1260.
You're with the Duker, Larry Morrow, here on WIXY 1260 Online. And what a thrill this has been for the past hour.
Thrill for me too, sir.
To have Billy Bass, to have Chuck Knapp, and many more. You were about to hear a voice that you may have heard before. You surely would know the face. His name is Avery Friedman. Avery's recognized nationally as one of the top civil rights lawyers in America. He was on CNN for almost 20 straight years as the #1 show on television for CNN. Had the highest ratings that CNN had. And he's with me now today. He's my dear close friend, Avery Friedman. Hello, Avery.
Hey, Larry, this is a great day. I'm watching you. I'm watching Ray, and right behind you is this magnificent recognition, the poster view, the Larry Morrow studio. Holy smokes.
You don't believe that, do you?
I sure do, buddy.
And well deserved.
Avery, we have one of the great stories. When the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame opened, 25 years ago, Avery, would it be?
Yeah, a little bit more.
Okay, a little bit more. I get a call one day, and I did not know Avery. I knew of his reputation, but I didn't know him. And so I'm watching Channel 8, and there's Casey Kasem is on Channel 8, and I thought, boy, wouldn't it be great to meet Casey Kasem one day? And so all of a sudden, within 5 or 10 minutes, I get a call on the private line. How in the world you ever got that number is beyond me. But anyway, and he said, "This is Avery Friedman." He said, "Larry, how would you like to have Casey Kasem as a guest?" And I said, "What?" So 15 minutes later, Casey Kasem's in my studio, and we did an hour. We had 1 full hour on the air. But what happened from that event was incredible. At the end of the interview, I said, "By the way, Casey, congratulations to you. You have been inducted into the most prestigious Radio Hall of Fame in America in Chicago. So congratulations." And his next comment was,
"And you one day will be in the National Radio Hall of Fame."
Yeah. And he said that. So from that event, Avery and I had become friends. But Avery, tell me a little about, even though this is a radio show, here you are on national television on CNN with what, 3 million viewers?
Yep.
Is that what it was? I mean, I had a lot of people listening, but not 3 million.
Well, we were coast to coast and worldwide, so I had a bit of an advantage.
You know, what was that like, Avery? How does something like that happen?
A mistake by somebody, I think. But you know what? You had mentioned Casey Kasem coming to visit you.
Yeah, yep.
And something happened that day that was maybe one of the most electric moments that I've ever seen in my life. Larry Morrow, the Duke, are here in Cleveland, and Casey Kasem together. And it was something that the world will never see and hear again. And what followed was Casey's statement to me, you know what? Let's see if we can do something about getting Larry in the National Radio Hall of Fame. And, long story short, there we are standing on South Michigan Avenue in downtown Chicago with you and your tux and the searchlight and red carpet walking into the National Radio Hall of Fame. And who were your guests? Who were you seated with?
Well, you would know better than myself, but you go ahead and mention them because I forget. I remember all of them, but I think you do a much better
one
job.
You remember because you asked the guest right next to you, how do you keep your voice so limber?
Yeah.
And you said, I, Larry Morrow, do the scales every day.
Yep.
And who were you talking to, and what did he have to say?
I can't remember his name. I always forget his name.
Paul Harvey.
I said to Paul Harvey, I said, Paul, I've been listening to you forever, and I said, I just listened to you even this morning. How in the world do you keep your voice so low and have such timbre? And that's when he said, I do the scales every morning, which the singers do, like the la, 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 la. And I said, you know what, Paul, so do I. And he says, your voice will be as tender in 10 years from now as it is today.
Boy, was he right.
And he's really right about that.
Absolutely. And here's Larry Morrow at Casey Kasem's table. And I looked around and I'm thinking, I'm not in radio, but this must be radio heaven.
And it was radio royalty that night.
For sure. Larry Morrow, Casey Kasem, Paul Harvey, his wife Angel, Jack Brickhouse, the voice of the Chicago Cubs, Ernie Harwell, the voice of the Detroit Tigers, and Joe Buck from St. Louis. And there was another guy there, and a soft-spoken guy.
There was a guy sitting next to me at the table who I didn't recognize at all. And he was going to induct...
He was accepting a posthumous induction for a guy named Robert Smith.
Yeah.
And everybody's wondering, who's Robert Smith?
Wolfman Jack.
That was Wolfman Jack who was being inducted. And this fellow right next to you was accepting for the family because Wolfman Jack, if you recall, in the 1970s, had a television show called The Midnight Special.
Yep.
And who performed that song? Johnny Rivers.
Johnny Rivers. So now this guy is sitting next to me, and I don't know it's Johnny Rivers because he used his real name, which I can't remember right now. And so I said, so you're going to induct him and speak for him? He said, yes. And I said, how do you know him? He said, well, he used to play some of my songs. And I said, oh, so you're a writer? He said, yeah, I'm a writer. And I said, would I know any of your songs? He said, yes. He said, I wrote Poor Side of Town, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, well, Johnny Rivers wrote that. He said, I'm Johnny Rivers. I literally took my hand, I slapped him on the shoulder. I said, you're Johnny Rivers? You're sitting here next to me? And so, that was a very special night, and I will never forget it. And I'll never forget when I worked out every day, which I still do. And my wife knows when I'm down in my gym in the basement, never to interrupt me. And so she walks down one day with the phone, and she says, you have to take this phone call. I said, Rosary, come on, I'm working out. She says, no, I think you should take this phone call. So I pick up the phone, I said, hi, and he says, hi, Larry, it's Casey. And I said, Casey, and I thought, is this some kind of an emergency or whatever? And I said, Casey, what can I do for you? He said, I don't know. I was just sitting here wondering. I thought I'd give Larry a call and chat.
And it was wonderful. And the two of you remained in touch when Drew Carey had his 100th show in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted Larry Morrow out on the West Coast, and you got two for the price of one. Not only did you do that, but I think you hung out with Casey that day.
Yeah, and it was to do and to work on that 100th show with Drew Carey was really special. That was a special time.
Well, and the wonderful thing that has happened is shortly thereafter, Sirius XM wants you coast to coast, and it was so vintage Larry Morrow. Not only is he playing the best music coming out of rock and roll, but when someone would call in, Larry would get on the mic and say, whoa, you're calling from Indianapolis. I can see the traffic right now, but when you get home, you make sure you kiss and hug your wife.
Yeah. Never forget that. You know, that was really special to open up a microphone and to say, good afternoon, everyone. I'm the Duker Larry Morrow, and then I'm coast to coast. That was a real thrill.
Well, but your brothers on the air included, who were some of the other national disc jockeys that?
Well, cousin Brucey Morrow.
Well, that's right, and he loved you, and you loved him.
Yeah.
And of course, Cleveland's Norman Knight was on the air for a while also.
Yeah. And you know what, we talk about all the special DJs that were on WIXY 1260. There was no more bigger name than Norm Knight in Cleveland history radio.
Right. Well, the funny story, and then let's get back to music here on WIXY 1260, and that is that when you were walking out, remember the exit of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the studio was on the 7th floor, was you had to pass the men's room. And there were three older guys standing there, and Larry goes into the men's room, and the three guys say, you know who that guy is? The first guy. The second guy says, yeah, that's Dick Clark. And I said, fellas, that's not Dick Clark. That's Larry Morrow. And the third guy says, Larry Morrow, I'm going to walk right in that men's room and shake his hand. And I said, I don't think you really want to do that right now.
You don't want to do
and
that,
if you're going to shake something, it won't be his hand. So...
Well, and Avery, it's wonderful. Thank you for coming on and being with us.
It was joyous to be with you, Larry. Congratulations.
All right, let's continue here on WIXY 1260 with
Sounds
more
like a
music,
plan.
more often.
WIXY Cleveland.
All right, you're with the Duker Larry Morrow here on WIXY 1260 Online. Today has been one of the biggest thrills of my life, and to have Chuck Knapp, to have some of the other guys. We've got other surprises coming up for you. Billy Bass was here for a long time.
And we have another Bill on the horn right now. Say hello to your original roommate, Bill Hennis from Florida. Bill, take it away.
Hello, Larry.
Hey, Bill, we have to be careful not to tell all the stories. Okay?
Oh, no, definitely not. But Sammy sends her regards.
Hey, anyway, Bill, it's a thrill to have you here. Bill and I met at our very first radio station for both of us. It was in Jackson, Michigan, and my station was I can't even remember the call letters, Bill. Huh?
KHM. I'm
sorry,
WKHM.
WKHM. And I'll never forget the woman who was cleaning up that night. It was my very first day on the air. She was cleaning up, and she said, by the way, I just want to let you know that every person who's ever worked here who had anything on the ball went into Detroit radio and became big stars. And so we're going to have to wait and see how you do. And I said, how long were they here? She said, they never lasted more than a year. And boy, my goal was to get out of WKHM after my first year. But then I met a guy by the name of Bill Hennis, who's on the line with me, who is Mr. Radio across America. Bill, how are you, my friend?
I am great, Larry. It is so good to be on the horn with you, my friend.
Yeah, same here. Bill, tell the story on how we met in Jackson. Do you remember?
I don't remember exactly how we met. I remember that we became very good friends, and that every time I got off an hour before you did. I got off at midnight. You got off at 1 a.m. And when I finished, I would come over to the broadcast house that you were at, and I would sit around there for about an hour until you got off. And then we go have a breakfast or early morning breakfast at the Regent Cafe.
Mm-hmm. Those were incredible times. And then we stayed in Jackson, Michigan, I think no more than a year. I think the woman was right. My goal was to get out of there. So I'd leave Jackson, Michigan, and then I go to Flint, Michigan, which is a real step up. You go from the 700th market in America to the 50th market in America in Flint, Michigan. And then Bill comes along, and I become best man at Bill's wedding. Bill didn't tell the one part of the story in Jackson. Bill and I became roommates. Yeah, and that was great. That was great fun. But
we had a lot of fun living together. We really ruled that town like crazy. It was great.
Bill,
and you were a great talent on the air, Larry. You had I kept telling you, you got everything on the ball, my friend.
Well, you know what? All I had to do was follow your lead. So I mean, we both became big time rock jocks in Flint. Bill worked at the big 50,000 watt radio station, and I worked at a very small 5,000 watt radio station. But I met a guy at WIXY1260 who then became a big star. His name was Terry Knight.
Yes.
And Terry Knight then went on to form Terry Knight and the Pack.
And Grand Funk Railroad.
And then Grand Funk Railroad.
And he went on to sing for himself, and everything was great.
You know how it's amazing how time flies and how much money you made in those days. Terry Knight and I would go out at noon. We would take our guitars and go play at one of the shopping centers, and we would split $50.
Really?
Yeah. Bill, what's your Bill, what's your greatest memory of in Flint, Michigan? Do you know?
I think, actually, when I left WTRX, and then I went over to WTAC in Flint, and I became Wild Willie over there, and that's where I really began making my on-air career happen.
And then you went and when you left there, did you go to CKLW after I did?
No. I went to WKLO in Louisville, and then from WKLO in Louisville, I went to WNHC in New Haven, Connecticut, and got my first PD stripes there. Then I came back to Louisville as PD, and then from there, I went to the Big 8 CKLW to program.
Yeah, and I had left already, and I was in Cleveland, Ohio by that time, right, Bill? Bill, radio has changed immensely over the last 50 years. Today you program radio all over America. Let's compare, Bill, radio from the 60s to what radio is today.
Oh, yeah. It's just changed over the landscape. It just changed because the personalities have disappeared. The stations are running way too many commercials in bulk. They're doing stop sets that run about maybe 7 minutes each half hour with 40 units. I mean, it's just crazy.
Does radio have a chance of lasting, Bill?
Oh yeah, radio will still be around, but the younger people are into streaming. They're not into the radio so much as they are into streaming with the cell phones. The cell phones have become the main situation.
Yeah, Bill, who would ever think it, right? Who would ever think that one day the talent that comes out of your head would be coming right through a phone rather than through a speaker? Incredible.
Absolutely. But I got to tell you, you have became a fabulous fixture in Cleveland, and I am so proud of you, my friend.
Well, you know what, Bill? You and I have been best friends for a long time. I was best man at your wedding. Never forgot those days. And what people don't know is that even to this day, which is now 50 years later, Bill and I are still best friends. We chat all the time. So, Bill,
absolutely.
Hey, Bill, thank you for taking the time to come on and be on with me, man. I really appreciate it.
God bless you. You have a wonderful day. You deserve all the salutes that you're getting.
All right.
Larry Morrow Show.
Love you, Wild Willie. I'll see you. Bye-bye.
All right, brother.
Thanks, Bill.
Bye-bye, guys.
And we are broadcasting from the Larry Morrow Studios in Cleveland, Ohio.
All right, let's continue here on WIXY 1260.
We have a request from a loyal listener in Centennial, Colorado, where it's snowing right now. Susan wants to hear Van Morrison. Here's Moondance.
And I'm trying to place to the calling of your heartstrings that play soft and low. In all the night's magic seems to whisper and hush. In all the soft moonlight seems to shine in your blush. Can I just have one more moon dance with you, oh my love? Or can I just make some more romance with you, oh my love? One more moon dance with you in the moonlight on a magic night. Down the moonlight on a magic night. Can I just have one more moon dance with you, my love?
The accompaniment, courtesy of Rick Storm of the Outsiders. We now have two of the Outsiders in the studio, along with myself and Larry Morrow. We have Rick Storm and Ricky B, the drummer of the Outsiders. This is Ray King live on WIXY 1260 Online with the Duker Larry Morrow live in the Larry Morrow Studios. Larry, how do you feel right about now?
I have been overwhelmed with surprises.
Our pleasure, believe me.
Yes. But I wanted to tell another Jack Scott story.
Go for it.
So, Avery Friedman is very good friends with Dion. And Dion, whenever Dion came in town, we would go see the concert. Well, this time, not Elvis, but Jack Scott's coming to town. So Avery calls me and he says, Jack Scott's coming to town. Would you like to sing with him? And I said, what? I mean, that was 30 years ago or whatever the case was. So I get the number from Avery and I call Jack. And Jack says, Larry says, now that I'm in town, he said, why don't you come and sing the bass part to What in the World's Come Over You and sing with my group? And as much as he coaxed me to do it, I said no. The reason for that was I had not sung with his group, and I just didn't think it was going to go well. So I decided not to do it. But that was a great Jack Scott story. Loved him. And when there's something that goes on in life that you say to yourself, it's impossible. About a year and a half ago, Avery and I had lunch, and he says, I've got something for you. And I said, what is it? He gave me a jacket, that would have for 45s.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So he gave me a Jack Scott jacket with the 45 missing on it. I went home that day, and I said, boy, I'm going to put this in my file. I called Avery later, and I said, guess who just died today? Jack Scott had died that day.
Oh, wow.
Right after Avery had given me that Jack Scott cover. What are the chances?
Really?
What are the chances of something like that happening?
Pretty darn slim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Jack had another thing that was unusual. He never flew. Everywhere we went with Jack, we had to ride in his Cadillac, which was okay.
Yeah.
But he never flew. So we would go from city to city with Jack. And so we would drive and we would be very tired. And he also kept with him because he was afraid of somebody beating him up or attacking him. He had a great big knife, like about a 12-inch knife, that he carried in his cowboy boots.
Oh, jeez.
Unbelievable.
Really? So. We have a request, Larry, from a loyal listener, Rob in Buffalo, New York, wants to hear the Osmonds.
The Duker, Larry Morrow on WIXY 1260.
This is Ray King. Larry Morrow. Has been an absolute honor and a pleasure to have you in the studio today, which are now called the Larry Morrow Studios here at WIXY 1260 Online.
Well, there is nothing that massaged my heart any better than this. I'm thrilled. I feel so honored to be part of that. WIXY 1260 was a major part of my life when I came to Cleveland.
Right, yeah.
And because of it, I'm still here today. You know.
Well, you are an inspiration to all of us who love doing radio, and you've done it for so many years, even nationally when you were on XM radio, and you're just an inspiration to everybody who loves this format in this business.
Well, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be with you. And you
have a sign-off to do, your classic sign-off?
I signed off. There were many things that I would do on the air. Ain't nothing cooking but the peas in the pot.
Right.
They wouldn't be cooking if the water wasn't hot.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing shaking but the leaves on the trees, and they wouldn't be shaking if it wasn't for the breeze. But I enjoyed my time here today. I enjoyed my time on the air as much as anyone could possibly love those moments on the air. So I would close my show every day by saying, do all the good you can to everyone you can, every time you can.
Great words.
I'm the Duker, Larry Morrow. Love you all. Thank you so much.
Larry, thank you so much. We'd love you at WIXY1260 Online. Up next, Lisa Jordan till 7 o'clock.